Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy, BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be talking about my recommendations and a little bit of some explanations for the top 7, or better yet, just top free-to-play legendary heroes to focus on in a priority-ish order, and why. So this is going to be a good one. Keep your face watching the TV? Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. So, number 1, my list, in short, is pretty simple. And remember, we are prefacing with that these are just free-to-play legendaries that you can get through Dragon Trail and specifically your arena chests. And we're going to show you that off. So, again, we're going to be talking about these 6. Emrys, Nico, Garwood, Nico, Thea, Veln. And then also the hero that we end up getting from the store, which is Indus, right? So, again, even though, yes, you can still unlock legendaries from the wheel by using your premium currency, that's not what we're going to be focusing on now. My view on premium currency will always be the same. It's never going to remain unchanged, or it's never going to change. If you're free to play, you should be investing every single gem you get into VIP. The more you do this and you invest early, the faster you're going to get to max VIP. And then eventually, once you are at max VIP, you can spend on the wheel however much you want and not feel as though you're not min-maxing on your progression. That's my view on it. Others, I'm sure, might have a different view. But again, that's what I've always done, and I've always found that I have got great dividends from it. Good return on investment. Okay, so with these 7 heroes in mind, my list for this is, and I'm going to give you the list first, and then I'm going to explain briefly why the list is what it is. And it's not as though it's overly complicated, but it is something that I believe is really important to focus on. Also, and what I specifically mean here is by leveling and investing into your skills, right? And again, we'll touch on that in a little bit in a moment. So, number 1 for me is going to be Nico, right? Why am I... Oh, sorry. Let me give you the thing first. So Nico's 1 for me. Number 2 is Veln. Number 3 is Indus. Number 4 is Thea. Number 5 is Garwood. Number 6 is Nico. And number 7 is Emrys. Now, just because they're at the bottom of the list doesn't mean that they're not worth investing in. This is more so talking about a recommended priority order to focus on when it comes to specifically leveling them up to increase their Legion capacity and also unlock more on the talent tree. And then also investing on the skills so you can level up certain ones. Now, the reason why I have Nico at the top is because, 1, ranged is really more so the meta currently. It doesn't mean that infantry and cav cannot be impactful in some way. I kind of put mage, archers, and air celestials essentially kind of in that range group. But when it comes to Nico specifically, PV, especially on the PvE side, right? Archers just have the highest damage output over mages, even though they have a little bit less range. They can be used in multiple ways. You can be a little bit more efficient with archers when you're doing PvE engagements, when it comes to darklings, behemoths, etc. And then also very impactful on the PvP side. Now, arguably, maybe not as much as the value of mages, but the difference between running a mage in PvE versus an archer that's doing DPS, or physical DPS instead of magical DPS, is that the physical DPS is more sought after in PvE, and you can. And when you look at the PvP side, it's probably like a 60-40, if you will, right? Where you're like 60% leaning more on the magic PvP side or the mage PvP side, magic DPS, rather than the 40% side where you're kind of almost there, but just not quite on the archer side. And now, obviously, with the recent update, in infantry and cav getting a little bit of a buff, I think this is going to change some of that, but we just haven't had enough testing to really figure out if that is going to really be bumping them up yet. And then, of course, how viable it is. So then we get to Veln. And the reason Veln for me is number 2, again, is simply because, like I said, right, I think you could you could still argue if you want to interchange Velen and Nico, but Velen for me would be number 2. Again, great compliment on mage pairings, whether you want to work him in with Alwyn, you want to work him in with Waldir or Lilia. Again, there's obviously a few ways that you can do that if you want to spread that out, if you want to do certain pairings to kind of run 2 mage comps or mage legions when you're out. And then Indus. So I like Indus as my number 3 because Indus is a great support utility, and really I feel as though I'm getting the same value with Indus, or a degree of value that you would get running Hosk as a secondary, because Hosk is secondary for their, where is it here? Third skill is normal attack damage by 15% is increased up to 40% when you're deputy. So there's a lot of value that Hosk gives you as a secondary, and I think the value that Indus can give you as well when it comes to the damage taken reduction, the healing factor that you get from the primary skill. Second skill isn't obviously there because that's focusing more on the gathering, but you get the Legion capacity bonus, you get some HP, counter attack damage reduction. It's just a great utility all around hero that you can pair with a lot of people, and the hero isn't dependent on being ran as a primary, which is nice. You might be able to, but really Indus, I feel, is a little bit more has better value as a deputy or secondary. Now we get to Thea. So I like Thea because Thea is probably the first pure, is ultimately the first pure air legendary that we've got, and has a little bit of kind of this air light Madeline play that you can work with the shield factor, hero skill damage dealt. You have some nice attack bonus and then damage taken reduction that you're getting, where you're taking less skill damage that's being inflicted on you. You have defense and attack bonuses, march speed. So to me, this is just a nice kind of Madeline light hero that you can run with air. And I just like that because now it's the first type of what you would argue as a pure air comp or a pure air legion that you can run, and it's nice. Now there's not a quality second pairing that you can run Thea with. You can also, if you wanted to, run Thea as support. If you want to run Thea as a secondary, right? Like we said, Madeline Light. You can run her. You can run her as a secondary because why? There's no range on this. It's very similar to Madeline's active skill. So there's multi-use for Thea, very similar to the multi-use that Indus has. Then we go to Garwood. Garwood is essentially probably going to be one of the first heroes that you get a little bit easier from what I've surmised compared to others, but this is going to be your kind of Madeline-like tank, right? You may argue running Garwood and Nika in a tanky comp, if you will. You could run, as an example, Garwood and Thea, if you want to run the shield to have a little bit more of a super tank comp. We've even seen that be done on open field, where I've seen players that are running, Madeline Nika seems to be a nice comp that people are running. Madeline Thea, I've seen a couple times Madeline Garwood, right? So it just depends if you want to run more of an attack and off tank type legion, or if you want to run a pure tank type legion. But Garwood also has multiple uses. So again, that's why I have Garwood here in my next position. Then we get to Nika. Nika's number 6 for me. Now Nika is more of your pure damage, right? Pure damage infantry, close range, has some peacekeeping skills. So you can see damage factor, HP reduction. Right, when you get the HP reduced for a percentage, you might notice that if you're ever watching a legion in the open field and they just like have their health, like what seems to be halved, so to speak, or a chunk of it's taken down. So you'll see some of that. The infantry physical attack and the march speed, I think, is a nice complement as well when it comes to having an infantry unit being able to move a little faster on the map. So it's a nice complement, really, when you look at Nika more so as a secondary. You probably could still get away running Nika as a primary. Just really depends if you want to dive into the infantry skills talent tree with her, or in Garwood's example, do you want to do infantry tank, or do you want to go full tank, right? Those are options that you have to figure out. I like Nika, but just more as a DPS based hero, and maybe at one point in time you'll be able to run Nika with a Garwood and a Madeline as an example on the front lines all on their own legions. There's just not, unfortunately, enough infantry that you can run right now to make that happen. So just something to, again, keep in mind. And then, right, you have a hero skill damage dealt, counterattack, damage bonus. Nika, I think, complements pretty well with Madeline, which is why we've also been seeing Madeline and Nika being ran pretty consistently in the open field. Also with some rallies for the counterattack that they both offer. With that in mind, then we get to Emrys. Now, the reason I have Emrys last is not really for any particular reason outside of that. Cav is probably, give or take, a little bit less utilized than infantry is. You could maybe make the argument it's about the same, but I just find that there's more universal approaches for a Garwood Nika, more so than an Emrys that is more so tied directly to running Cav. I'm sure people could tinker around with it and maybe figure out how to do stuff. I mean, again, he's straight skill damage. You have rage accumulation speed bonus. You might even be able to run Emrys with another hero that needs a lot of rage accumulation. Like maybe you even run Emrys with a mage or an archer, and then you're running the archer primary, and then you're just running them with like a rage speed boost talent tree, and then Emrys is just complementing that. So I mean, again, that's something that you could potentially try and do. Right, if you look at third skill, it's all Cav, so that's another reason why. Damage dealt bonus, hero skill damage dealt bonus, and then enhancing, this is an additional skill, not enhance. Like Legion, 20% for passion, increases rage accumulation more. If he already has passion, he gets 100 rage. So again, Emrys, to me, if you're not going to run him Cav, it almost seems like a nice deputy or secondary to basically kind of be like a rage generation engine. But outside of that, he's a little bit more Cav dependent, at least in my eyes, right? And so we'll have to see, obviously, how others might work him in. And let me point out, lastly, that some of these positions can be changed. You may consider, maybe you put Emrys at 5, maybe you put him at 4, maybe you put Nika or Garwood at 7, and then Nika at 6, right? I think some of these can be interchangeable, but I just felt that it was appropriate to at least give you a suggested priority order to focus on and why you would consider focusing on these. Another part of it is also going to be subjective based on what your individual player preferences are. Maybe you don't care for Cav. Maybe you don't care for infantry and you just want to go all mage. Maybe you want to go all archers. Maybe you want to go all infantry and all Cav. So part of it will depend. For me, when I'm looking at giving you a recommendation, I'm looking at how useful is a hero. Can you use them in multiple ways? Whether it's PvP, PvE, do they have multiple ways that they can affect and work their way into different Legion comps? And then what do their skill sets look like? What's their toolkit? So again, I hope that this video at least helps give you a little bit more insight, and whether or not you focus on this priority order or not, I hope I have at least done a good job in explaining and giving you some more valuable information on how you can make a good decision based on what is going to come up for you, the individual. With that in mind, I would love to hear what you think. Let me know your free-to-play hero priority order that you believe should be focused on and why in the comments down below. We'll see if it matches up. Regardless if you agree or disagree, I would love to hear and why, especially for those that are still playing and have been playing, I would argue, longer than me right now because for all intents and purposes, I stopped a little bit before SS1 Season 2 or Season 1 before we went in there, again, in lieu of waiting until global release comes out. But I do feel that I've watched enough and I've talked with enough players and I've read through enough of the toolkits to at least have a nice foundational understanding. And now, again, I want to hear from you. So let me know. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.